Hello, this is Brittany Proctor from the Victoria College Counseling Center, and I have a special guest today from Career Services. I'll let you introduce yourself, Blake.
Well, my name is Blake Brittain. I am the Career Services Coordinator here at Victoria College.
Awesome. So today we're going to dive in to a lot of different things. One is going to be the pressure that a lot of us feel when it comes to choosing a career path, right? So whether it's family, society, your own expectations, just deciding what's right for you is such a big question of what am I going to do for the rest of my life? And how overwhelming and stressful that can be. So today we're going to explore different ways to navigate that pressure, discover what truly matters to us, and hopefully find confidence in each of our unique journeys. So, Blake, I do have a surprise for you that I didn't tell you about until we got here, but I have a question for you. So, if you see in my notes, I literally wrote, so I want you to describe career services as a snack and why. And I literally put Freudian, don't share with Blake. I want to know like your initial thoughts. What snack would career services be and why?
Okay, I love ice cream, so I'm going to refer to ice cream.
Okay.
I think it would be an ice cream with a lot of things mixed into it, maybe a surprise of some sort, like a good rocky road, because there's so much within career services that people don't realize. So whenever you start eating that ice cream, oh my gosh, there's chocolate chip cookie dough in here.
Yeah.
And yes, there is. There's so many good things that I think people don't quite know what it is. They don't really know who it's for until they have gotten help from career services. So yeah.
Dude, I love that. You could be a politician, like for president right now. Like that was, I promise you
No.
guys, I did not prep her in the slightest. That was the best answer I've ever heard in my life. My God. Okay. So tell the people if they haven't been aware, if they haven't utilized the service yet. I feel like career services is one of those services that we offer here at the college that people just don't understand what it encompasses and like specifically the things that you can help them with. So just give us a brief rundown, like what does career services offer for students?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. I think it can be kind of intimidating for some people. So career services is there for those students that maybe don't know what they want to do with their life, which is honestly all of us some of
Mhm.
the time.
Yeah.
We can meet one on one and talk a little bit more about what your career goals are, maybe some things you've thought about, and just make it a conversation. Explore that together. The other piece of career services is help with employment assistance. So if you're struggling to get a job, or maybe it's just really intimidating for you, we can meet and help you build a resume. We can work on your interview skills together. Job searching, sometimes it's hard to know where to even find jobs. So we can go over
Mhm.
that together too. And another thing is if you're struggling at work, maybe you're just not happy at work, or there's things that you need to work on that have resulted in you being laid off, or um, just things that you feel you need to work on to be happier in your work life. I can also talk to you about that and maybe come up with some concrete strategies to help move you forward.
Yeah. No, and I love that because, and I feel like so many students don't understand that that's what you guys are there for. And so many students struggle with that. And then they come to counseling, which is also totally acceptable. But I always end up making a referral over with career services because I mean, that's really their bread and butter. Like that's what they do every single day, day in and day out. And they have a lot more expertise than we do with the specifics of those things. Um, so no, for sure. And I feel like it's a common thing that we hear here in counseling is like, I don't know what I want to do, or this perception that like everyone else has their life figured out. Everyone else knows their major and their career path. Like I'm the one person here who doesn't know these things. And I'm just kind of like floating in space. So in these specific situations, like what are your thoughts for students in these areas? Like what advice or thoughts would you give for these specific issues?
I I would say start paying attention a little bit more to people around you. I think one thing I learned, the more adult I become, if you can call me an adult, is that not everybody has it figured out. Everyone is just kind of going step by step. So be curious, ask questions, ask the people in your life what their career path looked like. You never know where they started or where they thought they were going to end up. Most of the time, it's completely different than where they're at now. So just be curious, ask questions, get to know the people around you, and I promise you, you'll realize you're not alone in
Yeah.
that.
No, and I feel like just speaking from my own experiences too, even, right, like in some professions, like for example counseling, it's not really something that you can shadow very easily because of privacy and HIPAA laws. So like going into counseling in high school, I decided like, oh, this sounds pretty cool, I want to do something like that. And then it's like, okay, well, the only way you can make it, like make a living with a psychology degree, or is, being a counselor, right? So it was like, okay,
Mhm.
let's do that. But then, you go through this whole bachelor's degree, you go through this whole master's degree, which is like 6 years more of school. And what if you finish and you don't even like what you're doing? And like, I feel like so many people that were in my program directly experienced that, got to the end goal, did their internships, got in the field, and then realized like, I don't really like doing the reality of what being a counselor is. And so I feel like that's an interesting, like, take it into this direction too of like, how do you even know what it is you want to do in reality? Because, what you read about or what you see on the internet isn't necessarily like the nitty gritty day to day of the job that you're actually going to be living for a lifetime too.
Yeah, yeah, and absolutely, and I think sometimes TV doesn't do us any favors in that too,
Yeah.
because what we see on TV is always romanticized version of the career. It's a
Hmm.
perfect that person is just playing a character. So I there's multiple stages to career development, right? First stage is getting to know yourself. So
Hmm.
how do we make a career decision coming right out of high school if we don't really even know who we are yet?
Yeah.
And I don't know that I wouldn't say that anyone really ever figures out exactly who they are. I think we just continuously learn more about ourselves as we have life experiences.
And you're always growing too, like throughout a lifetime.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. So, going back to your question of how you figure that out and how you learn more about a career, I think it starts with learning more about yourself. That way, whenever it does come down to learning about that career, you can say, okay, this isn't for me. And one example I like to give is I met with somebody who was really, really interested in a career that would not cause them a whole lot of anxiety. They wanted something predictable, but they were also really interested in criminal justice, law enforcement. But we took some time to get to know who they were, and we decided, okay, while that sounds like a cool career, it doesn't quite align with what their lifestyle goals are. So getting to know yourself will be a really good first step before you jump into really looking at what those options are.
Yeah. And I like that example that you give, and even making it more personal, like even for myself, right? Like considering like working for like a government agency, for example, like, I feel like most people get into psychology and like especially criminal justice because they're like, oh, I
Mhm.
want to work for the FBI, right? That would be cool, like a behavioral analyst, right? But looking at the reality of that job, it's a 60, 70 hour a week job. And going back to what you said, like knowing myself, I know that I like work life balance. And this even goes into like, for example, like my brother is a nice contrast, right? He values having things and having a house and like the whole 9 yards of the American dream way more than he values free time. So for him, working somewhere like a plant where he has plenty of overtime, gets paid a lot, that's a perfect job for him. He can make a ton of money to get all of the things that he wants. But for me, I would rather make less money and have more time to do things outside of work and maintain like that work life balance. But it comes back to, like you said, just differences in personality and what works best for each person.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
No, for sure. So, all right, going back to the topic at hand, right? Another thing that I hear a lot from students too, even is like when they do decide they want to change their major, that aftermath of I changed my major, so now this means something negative about me in some way that I've changed my major 4 times in the times that I've been here at VC, and that means such and such whatever negative thing about me that it is. What would be your response to these types of thoughts?
I think it I would say something similar to what I said before, about looking at other people around you. It's actually very common to change your major. Around 60% of college students change their major at least once. Because as you go through those major classes, that's all part of the career exploration process. I mean, I went to school thinking I wanted to be a physical therapist, and I took my first PT related kinesiology class at Texas State.
Hmm.
And I very quickly realized that it was just not the path for me. Um, I did not. It was not for
I was
me.
about to say, what was the thing?
Yeah,
What was the thing?
I think it was honestly, I realized I'm an active person, but I did not want to do all the exercise classes, which is kind of sad. But I was like, no, 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 no. I'm going to switch to psych and I will exercise people's
You just
minds
exercise
instead.
minds, right? You sit in a
Yeah.
chair all day, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that more people do it than you realize and try to think of it as you're just getting closer to that center of the bullseye
Yeah.
each time.
Well, and on top of it too, I feel like we're not exploring a major factor for a lot of students too, which is the parental pressure on top of everything too.
Mhm.
And not even just parents, but even a societal pressure or a family pressure to be, a first gen and come through college and have it all figured out and commit to one thing, or even parental pressure of, you need to do the job that makes the most money and that's what matters at the end of the day. Your preferences or your requests really don't matter. And I know that that's super complicated and based on each individual situation. But I mean, it's definitely an issue. And I'm sure that you have thoughts on it. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this particular issue too.
Mhm. Yeah, I think parents often mean well. I think most parents want better for their kids than they had for themselves. And so that's where I see a lot of those messages coming from. Somebody may have had regrets about not going and getting a certain degree or not going to school, and going down a certain pathway. And so they sometimes project that onto their
Hmm.
kids. I honestly think it's about education, right? I mean, somebody could go through and become an electrician and probably make more than us sitting
Yeah,
here today.
honestly, yeah.
So I think it's about education and having that good communication with your family members. Now, that of course doesn't work for everybody, right? That just unfortunately sometimes things are out of our control with how people are going to receive things. But I think if you can educate your family members on the route you want to take and look up how much that person or that career makes, provide them with that information so that they can see that, yeah, it's a different route than maybe they thought you were going to take, but that it can result in you having a life for yourself and making a livable wage. Because at the end of the day, most parents want what's best for you,
Yeah.
and they want maybe something that's different for you than what they had. And so, um, yeah.
Well, and I feel like too, for me, I mean, I'm a parent to a middle schooler, a high schooler, as of a few months from now. Oh man, I didn't need that existential crisis today. But, even as a parent of a middle schooler, I noticed there's so much pressure. I didn't even realize going through it myself, but watching her go through it, it's like there is so much pressure from the school and from everyone for her to have an idea already of what it is she wants to do. And just looking back now, I just feel like it's so unrealistic. Like to make this assumption that at such a young age, she's going to be capable of even understanding the reality of working. And then also, you're going to change so much, even between middle to high school, even from high school to college, and even in your early years of college, you're going to change so much in that pathway. And even as an adult, right? Like, I just feel like, looking at this trajectory and even the societal expectations, right, of having these things figured out and sticking with one thing, I feel like it's such a common belief that people have. And I feel like, it's just so unrealistic at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's definitely sometimes I think the focus is better placed on exposure, not making a student map out exactly what their life pathway is going to be, but focusing on just exposing them to what their options actually are, because that's where I think the hidden gem is with students at that age,
Yeah.
because they're still figuring out who they are. They have no idea what they want to do. But as they learn who they are and they get closer to making the decision what's after high school, I think it's important for them to be set up with a foundation of knowing what's in the area, what kind of careers are going to provide them a livable wage in the area, and then also just what opportunities and what resources they have to help them get a credential.
Yeah.
So I think there is a lot of pressure, and then that can bleed into when they're an adult and things aren't going according to the perfect pathway. Maybe you didn't get into the RN program, or maybe you didn't get into the program you thought you were going to, and that kind of changes your
Mhm.
trajectory. I think it's all about exposure, and sometimes that is done really, really well, and those students hold on to things. And other times it can be kind of internalized and taken as that pressure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Or then it means something negative about them in some way, which is absolutely not true. Like we're trying to reinforce here, if you're hearing the common theme, right, is that like career paths are non-linear and evolving for most people. Yes, there is that one person who has known what they want to be since they were little and they followed it and it worked out. And, I usually use myself as an example of this, right? I kind of just guessed in high school. Psychology class was fun, mostly because the professor was fun. And I followed through with it and I had the opportunity in my life to be able to do that. And then now I got lucky and actually enjoy what I do. But ultimately this is not most people's experience. Most people, like you said, get into the RM program, realize I hate blood and I don't
Hmm.
want to, change people's, clothes and do all this intimate thing. And that's perfectly acceptable. There was no way you were going to know that was what you were going to do until you were actively doing it, unfortunately, with a lot of these jobs. And we're just highlighting career paths evolve for most people. It's okay to not have a clear answer right away, and it's okay to change your mind through that process as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, and a lot of people will do one career for a while, and then they may come back to school. I've had people go through life, and then they decide, I had a sick family member, and I want to be a respiratory therapist.
Yeah.
And then they've discovered this passion for a career that they had no idea even existed.
Hmm.
So I think that's where exploration is beneficial. Like, don't try not to close any doors, be curious, take advantage of the opportunities to explore, but also know that it's totally okay if that pathway is not linear, if
Yeah.
it changes.
And there's no making the wrong choice. I hear that a lot too. What if
Hmm.
I make the wrong choice? There is no wrong choice. There's just choices, and there's the one that you made, and maybe it doesn't work out, and that's still okay. You gain something through that process regardless. You gain knowledge of yourself, and that particular area is just not for you, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
So another interesting point that I wanted to kind of explore here too is, we've posted our podcast about imposter syndrome and kind of explaining what that is and normalizing it. But ultimately, the role that imposter syndrome can play in career choice pressure and confusion, right? Because if I doubt myself and my abilities, or I start going, I see it a lot too with students, and especially with anatomy and physiology. I don't know that those professors know how many like crises they create for people in general, but now they know. But I see it a lot. People will take that class specifically and start doubting themselves of, I'm not smart enough to do this. Everyone else is smarter than me. Everyone else gets it. I don't get it. Maybe I'm not cut out for the medical field in any way. How do you usually handle these situations?
That is a wonderful point. I think everybody struggles with imposter syndrome. I'm
Mhm.
sure you do. I do on a regular basis. I would say to students, I do hear that often too. I hear, oh, I want to be this, I want to go for this career, but I am not good at this, or I don't know anything about XYZ.
Yeah.
They're there to train you. Um, I don't think any employer is going to hire you right out of anatomy and physiology and give you a quiz on the in-depth anatomy of the human body, right? That's
Yeah.
just one stepping stone towards an entire education. And I think looking backwards maybe can be helpful with imposter syndrome, even looking
Mhm.
back at what you have accomplished and trying to celebrate those things, to almost ease some of those loud voices of doubt that come up in your head. Remind yourself, I didn't think I could do this, but I did.
Yeah.
And now I'm tackling something new. And so imposter syndrome is another one of those things that is like a silent beast. A lot of people
Yeah.
struggle with it, but nobody really talks about it.
Yeah, because it's like self-handicapping, right? Like I'm telling myself that I've made up my mind that I can't do it. It's not based on reality
Mhm.
most of the time. It's just based on overthinking and being in our own heads for a little bit too long and not talking out loud. And I mean, we know that the research shows that career counseling, mentorship, this significantly induces reduces, not induces, reduces anxiety related to career uncertainty. So we know that career counseling can be very beneficial for students, and it's a very necessary service. So, Blake, do you have some suggestions, strategies for managing career pressure, these pressures that we feel to have it figured out or to figure it out? Any suggestions?
I think that's a good question because it's It's definitely a multifaceted question. And I don't want to keep saying remain curious because I feel like that's my answer to
That's the
everything.
tagline, though.
Yeah, Victoria College Career Services, remain curious, stay
And that has a
curious.
nice ring to it, though. You
Yeah,
should put that on a shirt or something.
maybe we will. Coming 2026 t-shirts. Um, I think to help with the anxiety that you start to feel about your career, just break it down into small steps, right? What is one next step that I can take towards an eventual goal that I have? And it's okay if you don't know what that end goal is, but just always try to think about what next step you can do to keep moving forward. Um, Sometimes there's almost that paralysis of, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's just like that negative thought spiral keeps us stuck. And then we kind of sit in that. And I think, or we sit in it until we feel like we have the whole pathway paved out. But you don't have to do that. Start with one next step. And with your career, it might be just look up what other kind of jobs are in the area, what's in high demand in the area. Or maybe you've always really liked the job that your aunt does and you're really curious about how did she become whatever she is? I don't know,
Yeah.
an accountant. And so go talk with her, have lunch with her. Just small things, but it's all part of exploring and reminding yourself that it's okay not to have it all figured out. But sometimes it can feel good to have something that you're checking off the list. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't do nothing. I went and learned about what accountants do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's such a human thing to want to have a 20-year life plan. And the biggest problem, the glaring problem with that, obviously, is that it's rarely ever going to go to plan. And sometimes when we stick so harshly to this idea of what things should be, that we're not open to what things could be or
Mm-hmm.
alternative possibilities that maybe work out just fine too. I mean, so many times a failure in our life can be traced back to this was a moment of change that was positive for me in some way. And I did grow. Usually, unfortunately, that doesn't come until later when we're looking
Mm-hmm.
back. In the
Yeah.
moment, it's catastrophe. And I think that's part of the anxiety too is, this illusion that like, if I know the next 10 years and I have it planned out, then I'm going to feel safe or secure in some way
Yeah.
because of that. When, like I said, sometimes it can really harm us in the sense of we get so fixated on what things should be that we're not open to possibilities and changes and differences and everything like that for sure. So,
Yeah.
and like we said, I mean, it's totally normal to change paths, interests. You're going to grow. That's good. It's a good thing if you outgrow a career decision or choice. That's a positive thing. It's showing personal growth. And remembering to practice self-compassion, right? It's a journey, not a test.
Mm-hmm.
There's no test at the end of this. You don't have to pass perfectly. It's a journey, and it can be flexible if you allow it to be flexible. And we even have our, career fair internships that, Blake can assist you with, informational interviews, all kinds of resources that we have here, even on campus, that can absolutely help with some of these choices and getting some options and gathering more information. And it's okay. It's normal to feel lost or pressured about career choices. You're absolutely not alone in any sense of the word. So, any other thoughts or issues that you feel like are relevant to bring up about this that we haven't touched yet?
I think you've pretty much touched on the biggest thing, and that is that you're not alone. I can't tell you how many times I'll have a student come in my office and apologize that they don't have it together. And I'm like, no, it's actually a good thing because I wouldn't have a job if you had it all together. So thank you, actually, because I have a job. But no, I think that's the biggest thing. And I hope that's what people get away from this episode of the podcast
Yeah.
is just that you're not alone. And
Yeah.
you don't have to have it together. You don't have to have it together to walk into my office or to walk into the counseling center. That's what the resources are here to help you with and to help you navigate.
Now, let's be fair. Who has it together? Point me in the
Mm-hmm.
direction of that human being who actually has it all together, not just on the surface, but like actually has it all together, because they're very far and few between. So, and at the end of the day, just taking small, thoughtful steps.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most we can ask for, to build some clarity and hopefully just confidence over time. Not even perfection, just feeling confident over time. And ultimately, I mean, you deserve to pursue a path that feels right for you and not just what other people expect of you. So career services can definitely help with exploring to figure that out.
Mhm.
So, in summation, in wrapping up, thank you so much for joining us, Blake. She will be back for many future episodes. We plot quite frequently about things that we could yap about related to career services and counseling. Because if you didn't know, career counseling is actually a subsection of mental health counseling. Very small subsection that I did not do well on my state exam. I will be the first to acknowledge that. But thankfully, we have Blake to be the expert in that category. But no, thanks so much for taking time. And do you have any last minute thoughts or anything that you want to share?
If you want to make a career services appointment, you can do that in your Navigate account. Or if you have any issues figuring out where to find me within Navigate, you can give our front office a call, 361 382 2400.
Don't look at
Took
me.
me
I
a
don't
minute.
know.
361 582
Oh,
582
Blake.
three
Oh,
six
Blake.
one 582 2400.
Just get on the website and Google career counseling, Victoria College. But no, okay. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you're interested in scheduling with, myself or Blake, either one, feel free to walk in, email us, give us a call, and reach out and just let us know what you need. Thanks so much.